School security is a huge issue here in Roanoke City Schools and a huge priority for the superintendent. We work on a regular basis with Ken Trump, who is a nationally known school safety expert. He has visited Roanoke several times. He's back in the Star City again. How unusual, this is at least your third visit to Roanoke. I know you work with the school system on a regular basis by phone, but how unusual is it for you to come to an actual physical school system as much as you have in Roanoke?
It's highly unusual, but it's unusual in a positive way. As a parent myself, I would like to see that the district's working with my kids' school on a regular basis on an ongoing process rather than just a one-time event. As we say, school safety is an ongoing process. It's not an event, but it's highly unusual. Most school districts will have us in to do one workshop, perhaps do an assessment, and then we don't have the opportunity to come back. Unlike here in Roanoke, where school safety has been a leadership issue, a priority for the superintendent and board down to the building principals. It's really rewarding to come back because we see really solid school principals here. If I was a parent in the district, I'd be very comfortable having my children in the district because your administrators make very good, sound decisions. Safety is a priority. They're thinking and talking safety, and it's something where the superintendent's making sure that her leadership team is thinking safety along with curriculum and instruction.
How important from the top down, whether it's the administrators, teachers, to the students, is it to reinforce what you often say?
Well, one of the things that we pointed out is that you can't just hand out a student handbook, say here's the discipline and the behavior expectations at the beginning of the school year and never talk about that. We're always revisiting throughout the year our expectation for children. We're reminding our staff about what we have for school rules and behavior and different activities. And we have to do the same thing with safety. School safety is everyone's job. It's from the school custodian and secretary, school bus driver, to the teacher and principal, all the way up to the superintendent and board. The students are also an important part of that. Simple things like reminding students of all ages, whether they're in high school and middle school or elementary kindergartners, not to open the door not only for strangers, but don't even open the door if the principal's on the other side, because you never know who that person is, and it's not the job of a student to do that. Making sure that students know that if they hear about something, a plot, a threat, a weapon, that they come forward and tell an adult that they trust. I was talking with the district principal earlier this morning who made the point about how students are very comfortable coming forward talking to him about things that happened in the neighborhood that may spill over the school, and that's rewarding. It's very easy to point to a camera or a locked door and tell our parents that our schools are safer because we have security equipment, which is an important thing, but it's equally rewarding for me to hear one of your principals tell me that the kids feel comfortable coming forward to him, because that tells me that he's taking on the human aspect, the people aspect of school safety, and that's something that's invisible to many parents out in the community, but it's much more important than a camera or a lock, and it's one of the most important things you can have to keep your kids' school safe.
You know, there was a lot of talk after Newtown and a lot of panic, as you might imagine, among parents. There was a push to put in bulletproof this, reinforce this, all new cameras and all that kind of thing. And you argue that while you may want to look at that, you don't think that is the most effective tool. Why?
Yeah, we've invested after Newtown around the country heavily in equipment because people are looking for a quick fix. The number of active shooters around the country captures our attention. It's emotional punch in the gut, and we want a quick resolution for that. And people think that turning to technology, equipment, locks, hardware, window film, and bulletproof things will prevent it. But it's the people side of school safety that we have to invest in. Where we see failures across the country in school security and emergency response is not in the cameras, the equipments, and the locks, or the police officers, how they respond. It's in gaps and errors with people. Someone who missed a warning sign, someone who didn't catch a kid who came forward and told them about or knew about a potential plot, someone who didn't supervise kids or wasn't in an area where they needed to be or didn't respond most effectively in a lockdown. And these are the things that take work with people rather than just putting up a camera. I think that we look for those quick fixes. I'm a father. It's an emotional response that we all understand when something happens. We want to put our arms around our kids and protect them and insulate them from these things. But we shouldn't have a false sense of security that if we're going to change the main entranceway or cameras, that those things alone are going to give us the security and safety backup that we need. It's really the people behind that secure front front door, and what's going on inside that school with the people that determines the level of safety in a school.
I want to talk to you for a moment about lockdowns. It's something that you stress to these administrators, principals, about doing drills, and parents may not realize they're done at least twice a year, and you would recommend even more. How important, you were almost saying, do the drill when the least, at the time that would create almost the most chaos. Why do you argue that?
Yeah. Parents need to know that the school district's going to do a variety of drills, weather and natural disaster related, as well as fire drills and lockdowns. But what parents also need to know is that it's okay if your school administrators do those things at a challenging time, during lunch period, where you have a lot of kids in one place, between a class change, perhaps just as students arrive, because we know that incidents that really happen, real life security threats, aren't going to be scripted for us and delivered to us when it's really convenient. They're going to come at a time where it's challenging, it's difficult, when we least expect it, as just as students arrive in the morning and maybe having lunch or breakfast in the cafeteria, or as they're going to lunch or between a class change. And we want people to prepare for reality, for the real threats, for the challenges, so that they're equipped to think on their feet. If we do the same drills at the same time of day, when it's easy and convenient and it's just routine, people aren't learning from that process, thinking on their feet. They're just going through some rote behavior, and the emergency may not follow that script.
You know, to continue on with that lockdown theme, we had a school that was on lockdown this past year, and parents came to the school. They were calling the school. They insisted on being in the school, and they felt that we were hiding something because we would not let them in the school. And what we were arguing is, because of the fact that we're on lockdown, they're probably safer than what was going on outside the building. What can you do to reassure parents or explain to them why we have that in place when we do a full lockdown?
First of all, many of the lockdowns that occur in schools across the country are not because of something that's happening inside the school, but perhaps something that's happening around the school. Police activity, someone's chasing a suspect that they stopped on a traffic stop, something's happening with a barricaded person down the street in a home, something out in the neighborhood that may not be within the school. But of course, there could be something inside as well. In either case, parents flocking to the scene, that's a natural emotional response for me as a dad, but as a security professional, I know that's not the thing that's going to make my kids safest, because now the principals, administrators, crisis teams, and the first responders not only have to deal with the threat, the problem that may cause the kids harm, but they have to deal with hundreds of parents who are well-intended, but they're not helping manage the situation. So we need to make parents understand and have confidence and trust their school administrators that they will make their kids safe, create the most safe conditions, which in some cases will be a lockdown, and that once the threat has been removed or neutralized or stopped, then parents can get access to their children and come to the school. We don't want parents who are well-intended trying to get their arms around their children and who care about their kids making accidental mistakes of getting themselves in the middle of a crisis and get in the way of and prevent first responders from helping keep their kids safe. Parents flocking to the scene could unintentionally have consequences that could make their kids less safe than more safe. They need to be confident in their school administrators, trust that the procedures that are put up are going to be implemented effectively, and then turn to the school district to communicate quickly and timely and accurately once the thing's under control, and let them know what's going on.
You know, what we saw after Newtown, a lot of understanding from parents, less complaining when we asked them to check into the school, provide an ID, and so forth. Are you afraid at all as we get further away from Newtown that understanding is going to go away?
Well, time and distance from a high-profile incident leads and breeds to complacency. And we have to make sure that the farther we are away from a high-profile incident, that we don't think less about security or it falls on the back burner. Often after a high-profile incident, in schools, they're the safest place to be because everyone's thinking about school safety. It's not whether a high-profile incident's a wake-up call. The question is, will we hit the snooze button and go to sleep? 6 months or 6 years down the road, short of another incident, will safety be a priority to me as a parent, to my teachers, to my principals, to the first responders, as it was in the days after a crisis? And unfortunately, history tells us oftentimes that's not the case. We become complacent. And I think what we'd like to see is we don't want people to have to be in a constant state of panic or alarm, where you have to have high-profile incidents in order to create people's sensitivity to it. And we'd like to think that we can go through life without incidents, but still maintain that vigilance to prevent a problem and to be prepared to respond.
Ken, it's always useful information for parents. I know I always get a lot out of your presentation, so thank you again for coming to Roanoke.
Great to be here. It's always a good place to see where people are proactive, and it's part of the culture.
Okay, and I'm sure we'll see you back here sometime in the future. So.
Glad to come.
And we'll be right back.